everyone, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Beautifully, I'm your host Avantika. In today's episode, we have a really special guest with us. Avigail Gimpel is a mother of six amazing kids, most diagnosed with ADHD, a special educator, a college lecturer, and an author. When she saw how little understanding there was about the root causes of ADHD and quality intervention programs for it, she got to work. The result is that she authored two highly informative books. Her first book, HyperHealing, is a guide to understanding why a child is struggling and a full intervention plan. And her second book, HypeHealing, Show Me the Science, empowers parents to make the best intervention decisions for their children. Abigail is a tireless advocate for children, and I'm so glad that we have this opportunity to interview her today. You guys know I advocate for therapy all the time. Beautiful You encourages you to seek the right professional help and care for you. This is where AMAHA comes in. AMAHA is a mental health care organization offering scientifically driven and evidence-based high-quality care through therapy, psychiatry, their community support, and self-care app. Whether you're dealing with anxiety, depression, or any other severe condition, AMAHA has about 140 plus psychologists and psychiatrists working to support you. You can access therapy and psychiatry services online as well as in person through their centers in Bangalore, Delhi, and Mumbai. Beautiful You listeners get a special discount. Use the code BY50 to get 50% off your first session with AMAHA. Just download their app. It's called AMAHA, AMAHA, or visit their website to book your first session with AMAHA. And if you know someone who is struggling with mental health, share the love and the discount. Let's make mental health care accessible for everyone together. Invest in your mental health. You deserve it. Welcome to the podcast, Abigail. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. It's really fun to be finally talking to you. It took us a while to figure out when we'd have this conversation, so I'm excited to be here today with you.
Of course, yeah. So to begin with, I would like to know your journey as an advocate. How did that begin? Tell me more about it. You mentioned that your kids have ADHD, so tell me more about it.
Absolutely. So when my children were were younger, and I saw that they were struggling a little bit in school, having trouble sitting, let's say in kindergarten and circle time, and they seemed to have a little bit more energy than the rest of the kids around them, or were jumping from thing to thing. I kept an eye on it. I'm a special educator myself, but they seemed to be okay. They seemed to be healthy. And then we switched my oldest daughter from a smaller school where there was only 15 children in the classroom to a much bigger school with about 30 children in the classroom. And that's when her symptoms just went out of control. And the teacher immediately, within a couple of weeks, was like, wow, you've got to get your kid diagnosed immediately. So whereas she was really flourishing and doing well in a smaller environment, suddenly she became this problematic kid and was really demanding too much of the teacher's attention, which the teacher had no ability to really give her because she was trying to divide it amongst these 30 students. So we were sent for an ADHD diagnosis, which we received within about 7 to 10 minutes total. And it was very impersonal, very cold, very very formal, but didn't give me any information. And the only solution that I was being offered was a prescription to fill for Ritalin. And for me, it felt like we were missing something. There were symptoms, but what was actually happening for the child? As you know, when I was as a teacher in the classroom, when one of my students was struggling, I would immediately say, I'm wondering what's going on. What's happening in the child's life, or is there a learning disability, or is there any other challenge that I'm missing that we really need to pay attention to? And this entire process completely cut out curiosity about the child, and it was only looking at a cold list of symptoms. And to me, that just didn't seem right. And I felt like everybody was served except for the child. The parent had an answer. They didn't have to do the hard work. They had a pill. The teacher had an answer. She didn't have to learn to discipline or ask those questions. She had a pill. And the doctor was well served because he or she, this was a she in that case, she was able to give a quick diagnosis and take credit for figuring out what was going on and offering this quick solution. And I decided that if we were going to actually raise healthy, strong children into healthy, strong, resilient adults, I had to get involved.
Right, makes sense, makes sense. So only one of your kids have been diagnosed with it?
Oh no, most of my kids were diagnosed with it. Of my 6 children, I would say that probably 4 were officially diagnosed, and then I just stopped going for diagnosis. I was like, I understand, I get the point. 5 and 6 are also going to be diagnosed. At that point, I was not really interested in considering using stimulant drugs, and therefore it didn't really, the diagnosis didn't really make a difference, because really you only need that diagnosis if you are going to be needing a prescription, or if the school is offering extra services. And in this case, a child in a regular classroom that is diagnosed with ADHD does not get any extra services anyway.
They don't. I thought after the diagnosis you would have certain privileges than someone who's neurotypical.
Well, where I'm coming from, they only get those privileges if they also have a coexisting learning disability, or if they're in a smaller classroom, in a classroom for kids that are struggling. So if the kid is put into a smaller classroom, a special education classroom, then they are offered a large array of services. But if you keep that child in a regular classroom and they don't have any other comorbid symptoms like a learning disability or anxiety, depression, or any other psychiatric conditions, then they are expected to do fine in the classroom and are not offered anything extra.
Oh, that actually sucks because that makes it so much harder for the child to thrive in a classroom environment. Oh, okay. And you're from Israel, right? So you're all of
Yeah,
your kids are being educated in Israel. Okay, interesting.
yeah.
So how has motherhood have been for you? Because it's been 6 kids and 4 of them are officially diagnosed. So how has motherhood been for you?
I love being a mother. It is my favorite thing to be. I'm actually a grandmother now also. So apparently, thank you. It gets even better. Had I known grandmothering was this good, I was skipped right to it. But I'll tell you what I love about being a mother, besides the fact that my children are so remarkably amazing. And it's not because they're more amazing than anyone else's children, it's because they're mine. And what's wonderful about parenting is that it really helps you develop as a person. It really challenges you to look at yourself and say, am I being a gracious person? Am I being selfish? Am I being patient? Am I being too short-tempered? And it really, if we're in this process and fully in the process,
Yeah,
then we raise ourselves along with our children. And there's no better way to become a better person than to parent children.
that's wonderful. That's actually very insightful. So do you what changes have you noticed in your parenting style pre and post diagnosis of your first child?
When my first child was diagnosed, I immediately went into the story that I was being presented with, which is that she's broken in some way. There's something wrong with her. So you have to accommodate, you have to have some kind of sympathy and raise her in a more cushioned way. And I bought that story at the beginning, and then I discovered that it's really the very worst way to raise a child, because when we feel sorry for our child, they become sorry children.
Yeah.
And when we don't believe that our child can be a strong child, make good decisions, gain the skills of discipline, of self-control, of bringing down impulsivity, when we don't believe they can do that, they never will. And when we accommodate them, then they just get wilder and wilder. And in my office, I see families that come in that have been accommodating their children for years. And essentially what they've done is thrown their children the car keys to discipline, to their own emotions, to the parents' emotions, and to anything that goes on in the house. And the parents are a mess because they can't figure out how to discipline their children because the kid doesn't listen. And the kid's a mess because he's terrified, because he's in control of his own discipline and doesn't know how to do that. So after getting that bad advice and realizing how bad it was a couple of years in, I switched my method completely. And I said, no, my children are healthy children. They're capable children. And what I have to do is see what they're capable of now and slowly build from there, because there's no reason why they can't learn to behave well and they can't learn to gain skills. Everybody can.
Wonderful. Yeah, makes sense. You shouldn't let your diagnosis put you in a box in any way or limit your potentials, because despite that, like, diagnosis is just a piece of information on how to take care of yourself better. Or that's what, like, I like to believe. Everyone has their ups and downs, and it shouldn't be something that, like, limits you in any way, or, or like dictate how you are or your capabilities or in any sense. So yeah, 100% agreed with you. So there was this video that I watched that you put out online where you said that your kids who were diagnosed with ADHD, they weren't showing up they weren't showing up with a neurological imbalance in their brain. So could you shed some light over it? Like, because ADHD is it's taught that ADHD does have a neurological imbalance to it. That's why the medications help with the treatment plan and everything. So could you tell us, like, how did you come to find about it, and what does that mean?
Well, it's not just my children that don't have any neurological imbalance. It's all children diagnosed with ADHD that do not have a neurological imbalance. And I think if we look at it from a common sense way and not see this as some kind of crazy conspiracy theory, the reason children are diagnosed with ADHD by a questionnaire and with the information from a psychiatrist and a neurologist, meaning that their brain is never checked. When we have any other disorder, we check the body. We don't just say, I have a feeling that you have strep based on these symptoms that you're showing. It hurts on the left side, hurts on the right side. You've got some phlegm in your throat. We don't do that. We demand a proper investigation. Give me a throat culture, and then we'll know if I have strep or not. But when it comes to ADHD, since we cannot determine a diagnosis based on brain structure or brain neurochemicals, we must assume that there's nothing wrong with those things. Now, I'm saying something that seems very controversial. And at the very beginning, this was not the way I went. And I medicated 3 of my children. But then I actually sat down and wrote my second book, which is the HyperHealing, Show Me the Science. I love the colors on that one. Isn't that pretty?
It
My
is.
friend helped me choose those colors. Anyway, so the reason I did that is because when the doctor gave my daughter her diagnosis, and then the subsequent diagnoses for 2 sons and another daughter, they were telling me about a brain imbalance, but they had never checked my children's brain. So I started asking questions. Well, how do you know that my child's brain is imbalanced? They said, well, according to the studies. So that means that if we have a study where out of 100 kids, 20 have a brain imbalance, your child's brain has an imbalance. This is not sound science. But so then it really got me curious. And what I started doing was reading the studies. And this is very comfortable for me because I got my master's. I took statistics like anyone with a master's. And I really started diving into the studies. And it turns out that there is no solid study proving that ADHD is a neurological condition. Even the latest and the latest and largest study of 2017, thousands of children. And they found with these thousands of children in many different places all over the world, and I quote the study and I reference the study, and anybody is welcome to go back and read the study because it's all referenced. They found that of all the children that were in the study, only 5%, all of them were diagnosed with ADHD. Only 5% of them had something that they could say was varied from a normative brain. They couldn't say if it was a problematic brain or not, but that would mean that if you put 100 children all diagnosed with ADHD in one room, which I don't recommend because the room would collapse from their energy, but you would only find that 5 of them, of the 100, had maybe something off or different about their brain. But the only question they did not answer in this study was, were the children medicated beforehand? What went on with those children for even that tiny minuscule amount of 5% to have some kind of varied brain? So the study was done in a way that doesn't give us enough information, but the headlines coming out of the study were that we found it, there's differences in 5 areas of the brain, and no, there isn't, because that only includes 5%, which means your child and my child are probably not in that 5%. And when this study was challenged, and the head professor who ran this study was asked about it, she said 2 very interesting points. She said, one cannot diagnose ADHD according to a brain scan, the way they did it in the study. Why? Because so few kids actually have any kind of brain disorder. They're using fMRI. And not only that, there were children in the comparison group who also had a varied brain. So you might look at those 2 kids and say, oh, this one's got ADHD, but yet their behavior doesn't reflect that. And she also, the second point she made, which really blew my mind, is she said, well, I don't know what you expect. In order to diagnose, you'd expect to see 100% of them have a brain condition, in which case no psychiatric conditions are valid. So there's where we're holding, in which case I, as a mother, am choosing, and a practitioner dealing with ADHD, I'm choosing to assume that every single one of those children is healthy and not in that 5%. And I'm going to treat them that way. And I'm going to look at the symptoms and try to find out, why is this child not flourishing?
Well, what do you think would be the true cause of ADHD then?
So there are many different, there's no one true cause. We are Western trained in our belief systems about medicine. And I think that probably you have an advantage over me because I'm even more Western trained, where there's a problem and we have a solution for it. There's an illness and we have a pill. But that's not the way it works with the human condition. When a child is acting out, just like if someone's having pressure in their heart, in their chest, pressure in their chest. Now, it could be that they're having a heart attack, but it could also be that they're experiencing some heartburn or gas or 10 other different things. If every time someone had pressure in their chest, we assumed it was a heart attack, then we'd be mismanaging almost every patient that came into the hospital. So the same thing here with ADHD is we have to look at the child, and there are so many causes of ADHD symptoms. I'll throw out just a few of them. For example, it could be a sleep condition where the child is just not getting proper sleep or not getting deep enough sleep. It could be emotional issue where the child's either dealing with severe trauma, abuse, neglect. Or a divorce of a parent, for example. It could be an instant gratification personality where the child has a healthy personality, but part of their personality is that they're not developing habits and skills very easily, or they're not getting enough exercise, or they are having a gut dysbiosis where there's something physiologically wrong. So if you look at a child and they have a runny nose all the time, or puffy eyes, or asthma, allergies, autoimmunity, then you want to look at that and say, maybe that is what's causing the child's ADHD symptoms. But ADHD symptoms are just that. They are a list of symptoms that we check off and we say, yep, that child's got the symptoms. And then the follow-up to that must be why.
Okay, interesting. Could you give us some personal examples as to what do you think are the causes? Because, like you said, different cases will have different causes. So not every child with ADHD will have a similar cause. So have you noticed like different causes in your children?
Sure, I could speak of my own children, or it's more interesting if I speak about different my clientele, because my children are all being raised in the same house. So therefore, it would all be the causes. But 2 of my children were diagnosed with celiac, which would be a physiological cause of ADHD. And we worked very, very hard on changing diet and lifestyle, and that was very, very helpful. But I'll give you some examples from outside my family as well, where there was a child who was terrible behavior struggles. And my sense was that the child there were 2 things going on. I take a very intense intake. So I find out everything about the child, their whole story, their medical story, their educational, emotional, social, everything I want to know. And in this case, the child lived very far away from school, so he wasn't getting enough sleep. because he had to wake up very early in the morning, and he was going on a very long bus ride where he was playing on a Game Boy, playing gaming throughout the entire 45-minute bus ride to school. So those two issues seemed to me to really jump out. And they jumped out, and I said, okay, so now what we'd like to do, let's give a try at getting him to sleep earlier. So we worked on his sleep hygiene, as well as we took that gaming device away, and the father started driving into school in the morning. So he had a calm and focused conversation with his father in the car, and he also had some music in the car, and it wasn't therapeutic. It was just a regular father-son interaction, and he improved dramatically. That
Wow.
didn't do the entire trick, because also very often, I'll give you another example. I have a young man, just an 11-year-old boy, whose behavior is so out of control, destroying the home, waking up his siblings at night, really just controlling the entire household. And there I did not see that sleep was an issue, but much more, there was no discipline at home at all. The parents were having trouble with each other, and therefore they were constantly contradicting each other in front of the children, which is causing a lot of fear and anxiety in this particular son, who's very sensitive. Most of these kids are very emotionally sensitive. They pick up what's going on around them, and they have a harder time understanding what's happening there. And they also, because of their own tension with each other, were a little bit afraid of the child as well. And we're not disciplining him at all. When I gave them a discipline program and they started implementing it, the child was given permission to become a child again. And that also was very helpful for his return to being a responsible and kind and calm young man.
So the key here is to understand every case and to understand, like, take an interest and, going in as depth as you can about every child. So what kind of modality do you believe in when it comes to prevention, or just the programs that are there to treat ADHD? Because when with Western medicine, it's about, like you said, it's an issue. There's a pill for it, and that's it. So like it's just one way to go on about it. But since it doesn't have a neurological basis to it, so like, what do you believe is your um, what do you believe is your modality for treatment?
My modality for treatment is curiosity, meaning that I will look at the child and really figure out what's going on, and then help the parents or myself really create an intervention program. If we try to find one modality, then we're going to miss the child. And there are incredible programs out there for ADHD intervention, but all of them are seeing one aspect. Like, for example, The Explosive Child, which is a book I love by Dr. Ross Green. He does an incredible job of really understanding the emotional challenges that a child is struggling with, and helping a parent or teacher or practitioner really work with the child to become a problem solver. And I love that program. But if we rely just on that program, and the main issue for that child is not emotional, then we would say, oh, it didn't work. But for that child, he might need more of a strong discipline program, or that child might be needing taking a probiotic or changing their diet for a gut dysbiosis. We cannot choose one thing, because people are dynamic, and we have to see it that way, or we're never going to be able to help that child flourish.
100% agreed. That's true. So, so you have authored 2 books. That's amazing. HyperHealing and
Thank
Hype. Do you have HyperHealing with you? We saw HypeHealing on the screen. Do you have HyperHealing with you right now?
Yeah, sure. Got it right here.
I'd love to see it.
Second. That's my first book. Actually, that picture there,
Yeah.
it reminded me of my kids. It was during COVID that I chose the picture.
Wow.
And my sons, who's great at building things, he just puts things together. It's so creative. He was creating out of just different things he found in the yard. We couldn't get too far away from home, so he found some old bikes, and he found this metal structure. and he welded everything together. He was what? He was maybe 14 or 15. He welded everything together and made this kind of cart. And then he and his friends jumped on it and went flying down the road with it. And I'm like, oh my God, that is ADHD at its best. So it's like slightly dangerous, but incredible, creative and fun and funny. So that's what we landed up with, that picture.
Oh wow, that is immensely creative. Love that. So yeah, tell us about your book, Hyper Healing and Hype Healing.
So one of them, the first book that I was just showing you with the kids racing down the road, doing crazy stuff, but being awesome, is the full intervention plan. That means that if you're sitting at home and you're looking for help for your child and you really don't know where to turn, that book will go through every single possible cause, not every single possible, that's impossible, but most of the causes, the main causes of ADHD symptoms. And what I always tell parents is, read the book, you will find your child in there. And when you find your child, you'll know what direction you have to go in, because there's such a broad array of issues and of personalities, and they're all in there. So therefore, I always tell parents just read it. And the first part of the intervention plan is for the adult, either teacher, therapist, or parent. I'm talking in the perspective of directly conversation with a parent, but anyone else can use it as well. I've had groups of teachers that I've trained, and they really enjoyed the program as well. And there's an entire section in there for school. But first, we have to work on ourselves, see what kind of stress and pressure and anxiety we are dragging with us. What's our parenting skills like? And why is it like that? Why are we anxious about raising our children? So first we start with ourselves, and then we go into the different causes of ADHD symptoms. And for each one of those causes, there's an in-depth intervention program. So I tell parents to, they don't have to involve me. They could buy the book with each other in a group, and then meet once a week. And there's an action plan at the end of the book, at the end of each chapter, sorry, there's an action plan there, and they can follow the action plan and then check in on each other. And as a group, parents can really improve and help each other, become a community, and help their own child. So I love HyperHealing. It really holds the parent's hand and gives them the kind of support that they deserve. This kind of support I did not have when I was a young parent. The second book is Show Me the Science, which I did not include in the first book, only because not everybody really cares about the scientific background of the diagnosis of the pills. But for those who really want informed consent, they want to know what they're putting in their kid's mouth and why.
Yeah.
They want to understand the entire process. That's the book for them. And that's where I started my process. Even though it's the second book, for me, it was the first information that I was really swallowing and absorbing and understanding. So any parent who's kind of considering, should I medicate? Should I not medicate? What does this diagnosis really mean? That's the book for them.
Love that so much. Where can you find the book? Is it on Amazon? And
yeah, both books are on Amazon. The first one became an Amazon bestseller
wow.
a little while back, so I was very pleased with that. And my goal is to reach as many parents as possible, so they can get, for a very small price, a tremendous amount of help.
I'll be linking all the links to the, so you can get the book if you want to get your hands on it. So yeah, okay. So next, what I want to know about your journey is that being a mother of 6 kids with so many, or most of them being diagnosed, that takes a toll. So being a caregiver for so many children out there, plus you have your own clientele. So that, how do you overcome caregiver burnout?
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah. How do you overcome caregiver burnout?
Okay. I actually don't have any burnout, and it's only because I find my work so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I love meeting families. I love seeing their progress. I love seeing my kids' progress. Now, it's not always progress. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
It's not a straight line. everything's a process. So you're gonna make a little bit of progress, and then there's gonna be a little bit of a drop off, and you have to keep going. But so that part's challenging. But the fact is, I have a wide array of amazing, amazing parents who are completely dedicated to helping their children, and they don't always succeed. And you can see right away when parents feel too threatened, and they're like, okay, no, I don't want you talking about my parenting skills. I'd rather you tell me which pill to take, in which case it's not the right fit right then. But I always find my clients fascinating, and I'm inspired by my clients. I find my kids fascinating. So I don't usually burn out. I'm very lucky that way.
That's wonderful. So, your could you tell us a bit about how did your parenting help you be a caregiver and have the most efficient outcomes in your child's life?
So I would say that, first of all, my parenting has changed dramatically. As I'm raising my sixth child, I'm much more easygoing than I was when I was raising my first.
Yeah.
And just for parents to not panic over here, not one is not better than the other. Because on the one hand, we are much more involved with our kids when the older ones, we're on the floor playing with them, we're taking them to the park all the time, we're attending to their every little need. So on the one hand, they're getting more of our energy, and on the other hand, we might be hyper focusing too much. And as our kids, as we get to the younger kids, we might not be hyper focusing that much, but we also are less sitting on the floor building with blocks with them. So everyone gets exactly, in my mind, my belief in God and in the bigger picture is everyone gets the kind of parent that they need. And even if it doesn't always feel exactly right. But I think that what's helped me a lot is learning to be incredibly patient. And that, I would say, is probably the skill that I most value, and I'm always asking for more of. Because when we're patient, we're not only not taking everything personally, we're not getting involved in a kid's story, we're actually just being able to see the entire picture. And that so often saves us from making just the stupidest comments and the biggest mistakes.
What would
So
you
that's the thing I work on the hardest.
Makes sense, makes sense. And I can see that it's working out well, because honestly, patience is a virtue that a lot of people need to possess, especially when you're a parent. It's hard enough to be a parent, but when someone has ADHD, it becomes a little trickier to manage that. So, what would you say? Like, what's your one piece of advice for a parent who has a kid who's on the neurodivergent?
I would say, calm down. Don't make any big decisions yet. Just look at your child and do not assume that your child's broken, because your child is most likely very healthy and is struggling with something. So instead of running into making quick decisions because everyone around you is judging you and judging your child, and it feels very uncomfortable. And we all have this dream that we're going to give birth to perfect little children, and then they're going to grow up to be perfect adults. And so far, I haven't met a parent whose dream has come true on that front, because there's no such thing as perfection. Only God is perfect. The rest of us have to muddle through, make our mistakes, and take our journey. So understand that this is your child's challenge, and your child is a gift. Your child's the best thing that ever happened to you. So embrace the challenge and take a journey with your child, knowing that your child's going to do great if you can be patient, if you can be loving, and most importantly, start learning the skills yourself. You are your child's only advocate. No one is going to know better what your child needs than you will. So interview other parents, speak to professionals, read books, and see what feels right for you, for your child, and you will be able to guide your child to do best. But what you want to not do is get enmeshed with your child and start seeing your child as broken, or seeing your child as a big problem and a troublemaker and all that other stuff, and as causing you problems in your personal life, that you didn't want this and you didn't ask for it. And when you get into your child's story and you insert yourself too much, then you cannot help your child really grow and flourish. So stay in your side of the tennis court, let your child be on his side of the tennis court, and see what you can do to guide him on his journey.
That's actually really wonderful advice. So I have certain myths that I would like for us to bust in this episode regarding ADHD. So let's, if you're interested, let's like dive into it so we can bust some myths together.
Oh, let's bust some myths together. Love that.
So the first one is that people with ADHD just need to try harder.
No, so it's not a matter of trying harder, it's trying in a different way.
Right. Okay.
It's not that they're absorbing information differently, and we need to understand the way their process works.
Mhm.
And it's not a matter of just sit for another few hours and study and then you'll get it. Absolutely not.
Right, makes sense. People with ADHD can't ever focus.
Oh no, they're hyper focusers. They do great when you put them in front of a TV or in front. As a matter of fact, they are more pulled to becoming addicted to things because they're so great at focusing on the things that they really love.
Oh wow, that's interesting. I didn't think about it like that. Interesting.
Yeah.
All kids with ADHD are hyperactive.
Nope, not at all. Many kids with the ADHD symptoms are more of the dreamy type. And the reason they're not doing well in school is because they've created their own little world someplace far away.
Ah, okay, interesting. Only boys have ADHD. That's a new myth. I didn't know it was a myth out there, but yeah, only boys have ADHD.
Nope. I would say that, certainly in my family, that was very fairly and evenly divided between girls and boys. And I'll tell you what, the difference between girls and boys is that often it presents differently, where the boys are the more hyper ones and the girls are the more dreamy ones. And therefore, the boys get noticed quicker.
Right, makes sense. Oh, that could be why, statistically speaking, boys are twice as likely, or yeah, twice as likely to get diagnosed with ADHD. Maybe because they are more hyperactive, so ADHD shows up differently in boys and girls, and with boys it may show up as hyperactivity more than girls. So maybe that could be a reason for them to get seen more often.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next
The
one
more
is
they bother, the
yeah,
more they bother the people around them, the quicker they are to get diagnosed.
makes sense. Yeah. Kids with ADHD will outgrow it.
Yes. With the right kind of training, gaining the right skills, most people that have ADHD as children can easily outgrow most of the symptoms.
All right. I've heard that it's possible for with the right treatment, they don't necessarily outgrow it, but the symptoms may become lesser um, in adulthood, but most of them do carry their symptoms through into adulthood as well.
So that's not necessarily true. They definitely, because it's symptoms are caused by a reason. So if you resolve the reason, and let's say someone has ADHD symptoms because they have a hard time creating habits. Once they've created habits, I'll use my husband as an example, who definitely has ADHD symptoms, definitely had a lot of them. Today he's very organized. The room is in perfect condition. He keeps his appointments. So what happens is that when you have the right kind of education and you learn these habits, then you're able to maintain the habits. And then what was called an ADHD, a disorder back then, might be something that's a little bit of a every once in a while annoying habit, like not being able to calculate time very well or something like that. But the overall challenge of ADHD, of really not being able to function very well in the classroom, in the workspace, you can absolutely overcome, not suppress, but absolutely overcome.
Okay, that gives hope for people out there for sure. That's good. Yeah, the last myth for the day is ADHD is a result of bad parenting.
Oh, well, that's a good one. No, it's in most cases, ADHD is a combination of different causes. If a child is being traumatized at home by their parents or neglected or abused, then yes, a parent can cause ADHD symptoms, because abuse, neglect, and trauma will cause ADHD symptoms. If parents are not able to discipline their children properly, then a percentage of those children can develop ADHD symptoms, not all of them. But it would have to be a combination of a sensitive personality that's more aware of what's going on around them, and more sensitive to what's going on around them, and poor parenting. But those two lining up will definitely create or exacerbate ADHD symptoms.
Right, makes sense. What do you wish people knew about it?
That it is not a disorder, and that a child who is experiencing it does not have a broken brain, and that child's healthy, but that child needs help. So our patience, our love, our care, and our curiosity are absolutely necessary in order for that child to do great. Because just left alone, the child is not going to flourish the way he or she deserves. And we are the adults, and we really have to step up to the plate and give this child the kind of care that that child really needs to flourish.
Right, that's makes sense. Yeah, is there anything, we're coming towards an end of the episode, is there anything that I might have missed out on that you would like to talk about?
Well, we didn't talk too much about screen addiction, which is another big one, which causes ADHD symptoms. And it's a majorly problematic one at this point, because every kid is walking around with a device in his or her hand. And as parents, we often feel like we have no control over that. And, society has dictated that the child has the screen, and therefore, what can we do about it? Well, we wouldn't say that in terms of having a liquor cabinet in our house. We wouldn't say, oh, what could we do about it? Oh, well, it's here, so I guess the kids are allowed to drink. We're handing our children very, very addictive medium. And therefore, before we do that, we do have to make sure that we're putting some controls on it. And that's massive in terms of helping our children grow up healthy. We do not want social media raising our children. And social media is causing ADHD symptoms, as well as a pile of other terrible symptoms and diagnoses, and our children are not flourishing. So we do have the power and the choice to help our children make better decisions.
That's wonderful. Yeah, no, makes sense. We didn't touch upon the topic, and so what I'm hearing and learning from this episode is that it all dives into caregivers and how they understand and perceive ADHD and how they're able to provide for the child as well. That will determine how the quality of their life, basically. So it's so crucial for caregivers to educate themselves and to be patient with their kids, and to just go into as depth as possible to understand the condition, because at the end of the day, it's not the child's fault. The child is honestly just trying to exist, and we need to see how we can assist them better to live a better life. So yeah, that's for sure. And yeah, like, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation with you. I got to learn so much about ADHD, and got a lot of insight into what it is like to be a caregiver for people with ADHD. Where can people find you?
So the best place to find me would be on my website, which is hyperhealing.org. People can reach out to me for a free 15-minute consultation. Information about my book is there, and much more free information, as well as free resources and downloadables are there, as well as I offer a free downloadable book that includes all of the cheat sheets and all of the information in short from my book, and parents could look through that very quickly. They can also take a quiz to see what is causing their child's ADHD symptoms. It's a fun quiz. It's easy to take and really gives a tremendous amount of information. So I'm happy to hear from anyone. I always respond to people, and I love having conversations with the excellent parents that I meet up with.
I'll be linking the website down below so you can check it out. And yeah, thank you so much for your time and energy and to be here with me for this episode. This was highly valuable, and I just thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
For everyone who has stuck through till the end, thank you so much for being here. You can find Abigail. I'll be linking all of her the link to her books as well as the website in the show notes of the description. So yeah, do reach out to her and let us know what you think about it, what you gained from this episode, and what else you would like to hear from us. What are the topics that you'd like to learn about? So yeah, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you know the drill. Comment down below what resonated with you, like the episode, subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, do follow us so you don't miss out on any of the new episodes. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much. I love you. Bye.